One man. Goodbye. Hello, Heisman.
20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 45. There goes Davis. Oh, my God. Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game.
I give it back now to the 30. They're down to the 20. All the band is out on the field. He's going to go into the end zone.
Four-man Alabama rush. Got him. Oh, no, they didn't. Oh, my gracious.
Yep.
How about that?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a little bit. Welcome back to the Three Technique, the college football podcast at the intersection of the X's and O's and the Jimmies and the Joes. Fellas, it's baseball season. We can make no bones about that. It is baseball season, and yet we've got college football to talk about. Spring games have sprung officially, and we're doing something a little fun and different. From all the Twitter interaction that we've had, we put out some really good graphics, if I do say so myself. Had a lot of questions and comments that have come in. So today, gentlemen, I have drawn up for us a question and answer segment. We're going to be talking about teams we're buying, teams we're maybe never going to buy. Maybe we've got a soapbox to get on. A lot of different rabbit trails we're going to fall down tonight. No question about it. But first of all, if you are finding us for the first time, as I know many people did last offseason when the show really took off, really exploded, I made the mental note to kind of invite y'all to subscribe, join the ride before we get to preview season. I'm firing up the research machine. You guys, I'm sure, are very close to doing that as well. But we will have the written previews, obviously the episodes, the YouTube videos coming around the corner. So it sneaks up on us. I think faster than we think, but with all of that ready to go, fellas, it's been a little bit since we've had all three of us on. How are we tonight?
It has been a little bit. I got to know how y'all's brackets are doing, because that's what everybody wants to know on a college football show in March, is how the host brackets are doing.
Paper cutted to death. I think I've got 7 of my 8 Elite 8 teams. Shout out Florida for losing to my Iowa Hawkeyes. But yeah, we're paper cutted in the first 2 rounds, but we're still intact so far.
Yeah, devastated. Never close for a second. I will admit I didn't watch as much this season as I have in previous seasons, so I was coming in a little ill-prepared. But yeah, just absolutely devastated. I still fall under the model, and this has been kind of the talking point, that, yeah, there's going to be loads of upsets still, but it seems like it's been a little bit chalkier. I know there have been a couple that have pulled the upsets, but been a little chalkier than in previous years. And so my little chaos bracket where I'm trying to predict that, there's only so much regularity, energy in the tournament. There's got to be some form of upsets. It turned out it hasn't really happened that way so far. So maybe they're just saving it all for the end, and we'll end up with just like a bizarre, like low-seeded matchup in the national championship game or something.
Yeah, that Iowa Hawkeyes region is kind of holding it down for the upsets right now. We could get a 9 seed, I think, in the Elite 8 if they can get by Nebraska. So that would be awesome. Mine's kind of similar. I tried to call a couple upsets, whiffed on them. I was a Troy supporter. I was a Akron supporter. I thought they would get Tech, and Tech just like destroyed them. So it is what it is.
I had Kentucky going down in the first round, and I almost had that one.
You were seconds away.
That was so close.
Yes, I was similarly. I was with the Broncos. Is that right? Of UC Santa Clara. I was out hitting golf balls, listening to it, and yeah, it was like, sweet. We're gonna pull this off. 3 seconds left. Awesome. Good job, everybody. Shake hands. Focus on getting to the Sweet 16, and then Kentucky did what they did. My phone blew up.
Incredible feeling like a genius at that last second, and then immediately feeling stupid. It's just kind of incredible. You're like, I'm a genius. I know nothing. So yes,
right there with you in that camp. National championship picks on your brackets of record. This is coming out, I mean, the next morning, so it'll be fresh for people that listen.
I think off my top, I know I have Duke winning. I think I have them beating Arizona, so I was pretty chalky to get to the Final Four, but got a little scared in the first round from my national championship pick. But I think they figured it out against TCU, so we'll see.
Yeah, Florida's,
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Back to back.
Bummer. Now, I was going for it. I liked it. I liked the size, obviously, but
Yeah,
I'll just egg on my face for that one.
I've got Houston over Michigan, I believe, in my championship. My big upset is Arkansas knocking off Arizona here in the Sweet 16. That's probably going to dash my bracket, but listen, you live and
Play
learn.
to win. Play to win.
That's right, and it is a little different than most of the other brackets. Last bit of bracket talk, I ran a contest. I guess I am still running a contest in my day job, and one of the contestants only got 6 picks total wrong through the first 2 rounds. The problem was he picked Florida as his national champion. And so, I mean, I'm hand grading all of these brackets, and his bracket was nothing but green except for Florida. And I don't know. I mean, I guess if he gets just about everything else right, I guess there's still technically a chance that he could win, but I think it would feel a little wrong if someone who didn't get the national championship pick ended up winning. But that's enough college basketball talk. You are listening to a college football podcast, and we will deliver that right here and right now. I mentioned, guys, off the top that we've been creating some graphics, putting out some top 10 lists, really kind of getting the pulse of college football fans, the real sickos that are still deep in the weeds, in on the message boards in the spring, right? February, March, April here, as many of us turn our attention to baseball. We all know that person that's still typing out a manifesto on why that second string safety is going to be the X factor in a playoff run. So, guys, the first question that I think just is very apropos to start the show with: who is the team that you keep believing in no matter what? Doesn't matter if there's an injury, if there's a coaching rumor, quarterbacks not playing well, you're still convinced every preseason that this year is the year that the team is going to win a conference championship. Maybe they go to the playoff. Trey, let's start with you, because I think yours is pretty well documented at this point.
Yeah, if you're a longtime listener of the show, you know exactly what I'm about to say. It's the boys from Manhattan, Kansas. I cannot quit the Wildcats. I think I've picked them to the Big 12 championship 3 years in a row now, and they've let me down 3 years in a row. I can't remember which year. That might date back to when they actually beat TCU, but I picked them to go back to Arlington since then each year, and they've not done that. I look at the schedule every year and think those home road splits, they look really nice. They get some good opponents at home, don't have too many difficult road trips. This year, maybe it was the Ireland curse, I don't know, that just really threw it off from week 0. That was just insane, and losing to Army not too long after that. I don't know, but here I am. I sit here in March, almost April, and I think, Colin Klein, maybe he can get Avery Johnson unlocked. Maybe that's the secret sauce to getting Avery Johnson to hit that 5-star ceiling, and they could take the Big 12 by storm and make a run to Arlington. So I'm already got those gears turning here in March. I don't know why that started personally. I think that I just kind of have an affection, like a soft spot, I guess, for that school and that fan base. But yeah, I couldn't tell you why. I just love getting drunk on Cats Kool-Aid every summer, and it always comes back to bite me.
Listen, Kansas State's a great program through the years to root for, right? Not the flashiest, not the sexiest. They're not the ones hoisting a trophy every offseason, but they're very consistent, right? I mean, that 8-4, 10-2 area, it seems like has been where they've chosen to live. And I mean, if you listen to our preseason content last year, we had multiple people. Carter Yates of Dave Campbell's Texas Football, Shahan Jayaraja of CBS Sports, both of them talked about Kansas State as kind of a national standard, right? What a lot of programs should be looking to be in the NIL era. We agreed with them on all of their takes. Obviously, the season didn't go quite like they wanted it to, but overall, I think there's a lot of reasons. It's kind of like the S&P 500, right? Like you just put your money in, you trust it, you're going to come out ahead more times than not. I can see the vision there. I can see the future with Kansas State. Garrett, over to you though. Which program is that program that's just kind of like a bad habit? You just can't quit them.
Yeah, for me, it's kind of 2 of my pet teams, but they've kind of combined into one because of the reasoning. For me, if you've listened to the show for any length of time, you know that I just love me some Utah Utes. And a massive part of that is because of Kyle Whittingham, right? I love who he is as a coach and that he kept that program at the top for so long. my other pet team is now head coached by Kyle Whittingham. It's the Michigan Wolverines. I just kind of keep believing in them regardless. They're not always fantastic. Obviously won the national championship a couple years ago, but seem to kind of let you down in the clutch time more than they don't, unless it's Ohio State, in which case, maybe not this last year, but in recent history, they've been playing pretty well against them. But now, yeah, coached by Kyle Whittingham, I'm kind of forced to combine the two and say, like, whatever cult of personality Kyle Whittingham pulled with him over to Ann Arbor, I'm going to kind of have to, kind of follow that over and keep it with the Maize and Blues. So, yeah, I think I kind of have to stick with them. And again, bad habits, but there's a lot of good teams in the Big Ten. There's a lot of teams that are going to make noise in the Big Ten, and I just have to keep believing that Michigan's going to be one of them.
They've got a lot of talent on that team. I think the biggest question, obviously, is what will Bryce Underwood be in his second full year as a starter? Seems like the Maize and Blue will kind of go on offense as he goes. And so, I think if you're a Michigan supporter, that's a really exciting ceiling to have. It may also be a concerning floor, but you get some offensive stability, I think, with Whittingham coming over. There's, been a lot of distraction off the field as well. So It feels like Whit is maybe the perfect personality to come in, get the boys refocused, get everyone's minds on the football field and chasing those wins. I think Michigan should be in a really, really healthy place going forward. I'm going to stay in the Big Ten. I'm going to go with the Iowa Hawkeyes. And, when I wrote the notes, my two examples here are the knives out meme. Like, it makes no damn sense, compels me though. Like, in the modern era of college football, Iowa is the anomaly, right? They play no offense. The defense is excellent, but when they tend to play the big boys, the Ohio States, suddenly that defense is on the field for a long time and it's 35-3 in a heartbeat. But I like the model. Like, I want to believe that, hey, if we could just be in like the top 70 on a year-to-year basis offensively, that 10-win ceiling, guys, is within reach. And me, I'm a defensive guy. I'm a sucker for the blitz packages and stuffing the run and forcing those 3-and-outs. And so even though they are kind of the antithesis of modern college football, I continue to say I'm in the golf world, Garrett, no offense, I'm a Jordan Spieth fan, will be till I die. That man has been close to regaining his form for the past decade, right? And every year, me and my buddies goad ourselves into, he's so close. He's so, I know he just double bogeyed 13 and 14, but he had 17 birdies this tournament. He just a couple holes away. That's kind of how I feel about Iowa reaching that 10, maybe even 11 win plateau. We'll see.
Yeah, I think it's a great comparison. I love the Spieth and Iowa thing, and obviously kind of sort of the flip side. I don't want to, peek ahead at notes, but it's I like the meme there, at least, that it's like, oh, there's always just something with them, isn't it? Yes. Like it should be, it's everything on paper. Yeah, it should be pretty good, but there's always, like you said, those couple of double bogeys in a row to just blow up a good weekend, right? A previously good weekend blown up by some serious failure to execute.
Well, go ahead. I mean, take us into kind of the converse there. Which team you're never going to buy the hype in? I think you've alluded to it. If I'm buying Iowa stock, you're selling it to me.
And it's truly because of the inverse there. It's because it always seems like there's something, right? I'm not a total hater, right? I don't hate Iowa fans. I don't hate everything that is Iowa football. But for me, it's kind of like Gretchen and the whole Fetch thing and Mean Girls is like, stop trying to make Iowa happen. Iowa with a good offense is never going to happen. Yeah. And it's just kind of me saying like, okay, I've watched them time after time. No, but we got a quarterback this year. No. You don't understand. This tight end we got, he's actually a stud. No, we returned somehow we returned 7 starters on the offensive line because we just played with 7 offensive linemen or something like that. And I just have to continue to hear that, like, no, it's going to be different this year. And then every year it's not that good. It's just really, and I looked it up. They were a lot better last year in terms of just like one big step in the right direction. And I'm just supposed to believe that that's not an anomaly and that somehow like that wasn't just a bunch of points and yards put up against like massively inferior opponents, I guess, like, and Minnesota. Yeah. I don't know if you put Minnesota in that camp as well, but I would say and Minnesota. I can't believe that it's going to ever be a consistently good Iowa offense. And even when it is, like, that's where the defense is going to find a way to drop off too, because I just can't believe that the gods don't want punting in Iowa. I just think that's what the football gods generally want. They want Iowa to punt. They want the punt game there. They want them to win a bunch of 10-7s. That's just what the balance of college football needs, is Iowa doing that.
Yeah, listen, I mean, you throw Minnesota in there as well. I think Minnesota is kind of the barometer of just average. They can show up, they can do a bunch of great things. They also can drop a clunker as well. So listen, I understand where you're coming from. If we could just, clean up the double bogey, right?
Yeah, just to be clear, I picked Iowa partially because I was the last one in the doc for this question, and y'all took my first two answers. So I'm just going to say whatever y'all are about to say, I totally endorse and retweet this because I agree with both of these takes too. But, for the sake of being different and giving us something else to talk about, I had to go, well, who else do I not really believe in? And then there were a bunch of teams that were like bad, where I'm like, well, I don't believe in Northwestern. I'm like, yeah, but Northwestern's no good. So like, whatever. And I was like, no, not buying the hype means there has to be like hype in the first place. You have to have some sort of apparatus or media function that says, no, these guys are really going to be good. So I'm like, so who do we say is good or think might be good? And then never quite does it. And look, Iowa on defense, great. Iowa on offense, it's fetched. Stop trying to make Iowa on offense happen.
Yeah, we'll see if they can pass this year, right? I mean, that was the bill of goods that I was sold. I passed on to our subscribers very, very errantly. They were more efficient on offense. It was just all on the ground. So, Trey, with Iowa claimed here in the boat, let's head out to the SEC, shall we? And I'm going to co-sign this team that you just refused to buy into.
Yeah, and they always seem to have their little circle of truthers that come out around this time every single year, and it's South Carolina. Like every single year. Yeah, every single year there's like a signal that goes out on Twitter, and all the people that have to hype South Carolina all start tweeting at the same time. And look, they're going to have Lenora Sellers back. I'm sure Nick Harbor will finally learn how to play wide receiver and not just run fast this year. I'm sure that this is the year he's finally going to learn how to do that. But I got to believe when I see it. Like, Shane Beamer has had some awesome highs as South Carolina's head coach. He's, the upset win over Tennessee to knock them out of the playoffs a couple of years ago. The big win against A&M to kind of spearhead them towards a 9-3 season, almost getting to the playoff. And that really set up the hype machine out of control for 2025. But, they always are going to have a tough schedule. They're always going to have a tough rivalry game in the non-conference. And I just don't see Shane Beamer having the X factor to go an entire season without doing something incredibly dumb. He there's moments where he's going to find some really nice edges. Like, I think his special teams stuff, typically very good. And he can find some edges on special teams, right? Because of his background there. But then everybody was hyping it up, and then this year he was replacing like a long snapper, a kicker, a punter, and a kick returner, and it was like, oh no, we have never played football before. We have lost completely our edge because we have no experience there. So it's more about who the head man is. I think he's a fine coach. I don't know that they need to necessarily get rid of him right away because I don't know exactly who's going to walk through that door and guarantee that they have a 10-win floor, a 9-win floor every single year, and he's giving you a solid 7-ish win floor outside of 2025. But yeah, I just am never going to buy that hype until I actually see it manifest into a season that's not, there's no shenanigans in the middle portion or the beginning portion or the end portion. Like, I'll buy into them getting 2/3 of the season right, but I'm never going to buy into them, just finishing completely without any shenanigans.
Yeah, their whole MO as a football team, as a football program, is pretty much just like what happened with that A&M game, right? It's just, you have an incredible start, you start to believe the hype, everything is going perfectly well, and then inexplicably you just disappear. It just completely off the face of the earth, absolutely nothing going for the rest of the game. That's like the perfect encapsulation of what it is to be South Carolina football.
Well, and coupled with all of that, I think you guys have both hit on it. They're really not a sum of their parts. They're kind of individual parts, right? They've had some standout players. Lenora Sellers is a fantastic athlete. Nick Harbor is a fantastic athlete. And yet their inability to consistently move the ball on offense, the defense has been shaky at times, right? I mean, in the second half of that A&M game, completely disappeared. They forced three turnovers in the first half. They were picked apart and left for dead in the third and fourth quarter. Really, the third quarter as A&M mounted that major comeback. So, yeah, I don't know. It feels like they get out over their skis very quickly, right? And Shane Beamer is kind of an emotional coach. He coaches with that edge, and that's great until things start to go wrong. And then it feels like the room starts spinning very quickly for Shane and his staff. They've obviously going to have a new offensive coordinator this year. That was probably a change that should have happened before last season.
And that's what the truthers will point to, by the way. That is what everybody's going to point to that wants me to buy South Carolina stock. And I will say, I don't care. I really don't care. Can you teach Lenore Sellers?
Hit him with a Lee Corso. Not so fast.
Can you teach Lenore Sellers to throw it accurately down the field consistently? And if the answer is no, then I'm not going to buy in.
Yeah, well, I think this is from one USC to the next. I think it's a great way to transition to the West Coast. I'm not buying University of Southern California. I will not buy Trojan stock while one Lincoln Riley is the head coach. Very similar to my analysis on Beamer. I just think that Riley is a used car salesman. I think he's really good at selling the flash. He's kind of the hibachi chef, maybe just without the knife skills. Like he can throw something on the skillet that gets the flames up. He gets the onion volcano going, and everybody's oohing and awing. But until they do it, I mean, guys, USC has had all the talent for a long time, and even when they were underachieving in the 2010s, right, when they were kind of listless, they still had plenty of talent. And the truthers out there will say, well, now he's recruiting California. He's keeping talent in state. That's great. Talk to me when you have made it back to the college football playoff, right? Talk to me when you've been a consistent threat in the Big Ten. We just see no matter how they try and build the plane under Lincoln Riley, you can have a flashy quarterback. You can have great skill weapons out wide. You can have, the 5-star All-American looking guys on the defensive side, and then you're getting blown off the ball in conference play. I mean, how many years have we spent now talking about, well, they're just kind of deficient in the trenches, no matter what the size of those kids is on the offensive and the defensive line. There's a lack of physicality. There's a lack of grit and toughness to the USC program that, similar to you with South Carolina, Trey, I'm happy to be the last person on the bus here. I just, for all the pomp and circumstance, for all the people that want to say this is USC's year, now they've got all the ingredients in place, I'm not buying it. I will happily be the last person to see that win happen, see them get a Big Ten championship, see them go to the college football playoff, and give them their flowers then, but only then.
Yeah, it's never a good look when your coach has the reputation of running away from competition either. Yep. Like just running to USC away from Oklahoma moving to the SEC, then this whole stuff about leaving the Notre Dame rivalry and, backfilling that with opponents not the quality of Notre Dame. It's not a good look. And so maybe Lincoln can find a way to schedule his way to 10 wins one of these years and backdoor his way into a playoff spot.
Well, he's kind of trying to, right? They got rid of Notre Dame.
That's what I'm saying. He's trying to. And maybe the new Pac-12 is going to look really enticing after 1 year. And he can convince USC to be a football-only member there or something. But, yeah, he is a guy that if you haven't sold all your stock in him, I would try to find a way to unload whatever positions you have left.
Well, yeah. And I'd also like to just real quick throw out an apology to any hibachi chefs that were insulting, because if you're familiar with Lincoln Riley's meat cooking game, I just want to say, I know that maybe not all hibachi chefs are quite at that standard, or maybe it's tough to smoke a brisket, but I don't know, man. I like the analogy, obviously, but as long as we're making it super clear, this is not a 1-to-1, and we're not talking about your ability to cook meat as a hibachi chef being comparable to Lincoln Riley.
That's right. Benihana will not be lining up to be a sponsor of this here podcast. We just kind of shoehorned Notre Dame into that discussion, and I have it here in the run sheet to follow up on Notre Dame, because I think this is a team that's going to get a lot of headlines. It's going to get a lot of discussion in the preseason, guys. top overall returning production in Bill Connolly's list that he put out today, the RPI. They also have one of the easiest schedules, I think, in college football. They miss USC off the schedule. The back half of their schedule is a little bit tougher. I think they've got Miami and they've got SMU, if I'm not mistaken, on that. So there are, a couple of places for Notre Dame to hang their hat, but they're going to be, their schedule is Wisconsin, Rice, Michigan State, at Purdue, at North Carolina, Stanford, at BYU. We'll see what the Cougars are like, versus Navy, versus Miami, versus Boston College. They get SMU at home, and then they're at Syracuse. I mean, you're going to be able to find a lot of schedules around the country that are much more difficult than what the Fighting Irish will play. And what's been the knock on Notre Dame, right? They trip up when they have a hard game early. They don't really have that this year. There is plenty of runway for CJ Carr and the boys to get that momentum. So, with that context set, like how do we feel about Notre Dame being a team to finally buy some stock in as a team that could win it all?
I think they're going to be my preseason number one team when we do our initial power rankings, or if we do a in-house poll, or if we do the all podcasters poll again. I'm going to have them number one because I love the returning production. I love both sides of the ball. It really wasn't a talent issue last year. It truly was hey, we have two very difficult games right off the bat, and we have a brand new starting quarterback who held his own, especially in that Texas A&M game. But you look at how they just morphed into this monster throughout the back half of that schedule. I don't see them missing a beat. I really don't see them having a lot of trouble with the front end of the schedule like you laid out, Mitch. And, when I think I was on with Tyler Noe of Always Talking Ball previewing last year's team, and he was just going up and down the depth chart. And I'm just like, yeah, that's a dude. That's a dude. Mm-hmm. That dude's not going to get any playing time, but next year that's going to be a dude. This year they are not going to be short of talent at any position. And I just don't see anyone on that schedule. Maybe the trip to BYU just gets really rowdy up in Provo, and it's at altitude, and it's a little bit difficult. I can't remember if Provo was a place we got called out about altitude or not. So sorry, altitude
yes.
Watchers. But,
yes, back in the day.
I that's the only real spot you look up at their schedule and say, yeah, that's where you might have a little bit of cause for pause. But it's going to be a combination of one of, if not the most talented teams in the entire country that's been playing together, mostly homegrown talent, and experienced quarterback, experienced defense, playing a schedule that is not going to challenge them most of the weeks. I think they're just going to have so much time to build up the reps and build up the just Death Star that we thought they could be this year.
Well, and it's the experience at the quarterback position, right? The fact that I think in college football, especially, experience, not just in terms of years played, but within a system, I think is really important because, you guys transferring across the country, you wonder how they might fit. With CJ Carr being able to get a whole year under his belt, tough losses at the beginning of the schedule, but, he kind of bounced back, and, it's resilience and being able to build that up, gets a whole off season to kind of look over some of that, fine tune some things, get back. At this point, that's one of the most valuable things you can have is a young, talented, but continuing to develop quarterback. And if he's going to continue to develop, like you guys are saying, like over the first half of the year, then we're giving him a year and a half of development until it really starts to matter for him in terms of needing to lead the team, needing to put the team on his back. I personally love it for him. I think it's going to be great. The other thing that I think is maybe an intangible here is they got to walk around this entire offseason hearing about how great in-state Indiana is, and hearing about how good those Hoosiers are and how they run college football now, and how Curt Cignetti's never going to lose a national championship game. He's going to win the next 10 and then retire or something. And meanwhile, you got, Freeman company over there that have to just sit there and listen to that all off season. If you need a reason to get pissed off, that's going to be part of it. So, I think that's going to be a very highly motivated Notre Dame team with not a whole lot of nonsense going on in that locker room. I would hate to be somebody on Notre Dame's schedule next year.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I haven't done the thought experiment on who exactly is going to be my number one team, but when we put out our graphic of our top 10 offenses, Notre Dame's obviously going to be high on that list. Most people will have them as their number one overall offense, not only from returning production standpoint, but as we talked about, the ease of that schedule. They're not going to be playing a ton of world beaters, especially early. So, yeah, I think for the Fighting Irish fans, as frustrating as getting left out of the playoff this last season was, I do not think that this is anywhere close to what Florida State went through, right? Where all of a sudden you just drop off a cliff. I think this is the revenge narrative that the 2026 season will probably have as one of its main themes. And, that's a different kind of pressure, right? We're going to see how Marcus Freeman rises to some of those expectations. He's been putting that narrative to bed of, can he handle the week-to-week grind? Can he get his guys up for the biggest challenges? Or when it's not a brand name opponent, when it's a Marshall, when it's a Northern Illinois, can he get the Irish up to play? I think we're going to have all of those storylines in a blender, with kind of that main ingredient being revenge, to be quite honest. So would love to invite you guys to join the conversation, the Jimmies and Joes, over on our X account, Instagram, YouTube. Jump in the comments. If you're on the Spotify app, swipe up. We'd love to know, are you buying on Notre Dame? It certainly seems like we are. And again, we'd love to have that conversation with you. Guys, let's transition to another hot button issue, another question that we get from fans and from people out on the Twitter sphere. Again, I put out another graphic kind of labeling the top 10 hottest seats around the country. So, Trey, I'll kick this one to you first. Who is the first coach to get a pink slip this season? Not whose seat is the hottest, but who is the first coach to actually be told, we need to see you in the principal's office?
Well, I think there's two different ways you could take this. And if it's off the field scandal, just tomfoolery, I think it's Bill Belichick. I don't think there's any denying that that's the most likely there. But if we're just strictly saying on the field, I'll go Mike Locksley. I think that it's a couple years overdue. I know that they kept him on one more year to keep the band together, right? The young talent that they've got there.
Yep.
But if that doesn't manifest into wins this year, I think you got to cut bait and just say we can't hold out forever. I'm waiting on this young talent that may never get us even back to a bowl game. So, yeah, especially if they start to slide and have those prolonged losing streaks like they're prone to do in the back half of the schedule, I could see Mike Locksley being one of the first. But it does seem, just as a general overarching theme, it does seem like this is going to be maybe a more chill coaching carousel this year after the just absolute madhouse that we had last year.
You say that now.
I do. Yeah.
Clip that if that goes wrong, if that goes sideways. A lot of big names moved, right? It's harder to think of a James Franklin type move happening that kicks it all off. But then again, I think the overarching theme to me, like if you asked me to describe the coaching carousel last year in one word, I would honestly say irresponsible, right? So much money was thrown around. Timelines just didn't seem to matter. We just had administrations pulling the trigger left and right. Some administrations didn't pull the trigger when we really thought they would. So I guess who the heck knows? Garrett, who are you pulling the trigger on?
I think if we're talking first guy to do it, I'm going to take another overreactor. This isn't as easy as last year. Last year, I could have given you probably like 6 names who I'd have said, these guys are probably gone before Halloween. And I was probably right on most of them. I think this year, though, looking at some of the trends from last year, Shane Beamer's in trouble. I think he's got to perform pretty well early and get his team going pretty well because everyone in the SEC has made their moves, right? And there's teams that have been at the top of the SEC that have been, making the playoff and, teams making playoff for the first time and teams having success in the playoffs and everything else. Meanwhile, you have a lot of teams that did make their move, right? Like LSU making their move, Auburn made their move, Florida made their move, Kentucky made their move. Like they all made moves to kind of push their programs along, go ahead, hit reset, find somebody new. And I think that when you look at that perspective, I don't think that Shane Beamer has a very long leash, especially if, like, let's say that Auburn, Florida, Kentucky, someone like that starts performing well early, pulls a big upset, or like looks really competitive. I think a lot of people in South Carolina are going to go, okay, we got to turn it around because we're about to be at the bottom of the barrel and I can't afford to do that. So I think Shane Beamer's in a bit of a pickle right now. They got to win some games early if he wants to keep his job.
Yeah, I think a guy's going to get a spot on the YouTube thumbnail here. I'm going to go with Dave Aranda to be the first one fired. And quite honestly, guys, I mean, can anyone actually tell me how he's still employed in Waco right now? Like, what is Baylor waiting for?
They just didn't want the smoke of this last coaching cycle. I think that's the only reason.
Baylor notoriously does make good decisions with leadership. So
listen, they have had out no matter who it is in that athletic department, there have been some prickly pears.
They always move on from a guy at the right time. They never hang on to a guy a little bit too long. It's just not what they do.
Never. They never wait until somebody shows up in some court docs that might get released before saying, okay, you know what, we should. This guy might not be a good guy. What do you mean?
We don't need to fire Aranda. There's no scandal.
Listen, Dave Aranda is, I think, my poster child for great coordinator, terrible head coach, right? I mean, he had everything he could have wanted. He had an explosive offense. He had a defense that he finally got to craft. He was going to call the plays this last year, right? I mean, there was a reason why Shahan and I waxed poetically on the Big 12 preview about, you know what, if you squint, guys, the Baylor Bears can get to Arlington. Not even close. Not even close. They were blown off the ball. They gave up 300 yards to Jackson Arnold on QB keepers. And that kind of just defined the season, right? The offense had some pop. Defense couldn't stop a nosebleed. I don't know why Dave Aranda can look himself in the mirror and say, yeah, this is why I'm the head coach of the Baylor Bears. I think, to your point, Trey, I think it's the administration going, okay, he's a dead man walking. And now we have to figure out when it's most advantageous, I guess, because they didn't even keep the recruiting class, right? As soon as
they got DJ Lagway, though. They got DJ Lagway. He's going to solve all the problems.
Right, yeah, and all the interceptions. I don't have a reason to believe in Baylor going forward this year, and it starts with the head coach. So I think, if Baylor starts losing some games early, if it starts to go sideways on the Brazos, I think Aranda is very quickly dismissed. And I think, to your point about the chaos of the coaching carousel, I think if Baylor could be the Penn State this year, maybe they try and manage it a little bit better than Penn State did. But if they have 6-7 weeks to try and figure out who's actually going to fit there, I think that's something that might be attractive to the administration there in Waco. But yeah, weird spot. Obviously, Mike Norvell is another honorable mention. The reason I didn't name him is Florida State's so in debt right now. They can't afford to pay that buyout, right? I mean, his coaching seat may be the hottest of anybody in the country, but because Florida State inked him to that massive extension, their athletic department is so overwhelmingly in the hole right now. They can't even think about paying that buyout. So they're kind of shackled to him, right? I mean, it's not even the golden handcuffs. It's like the leaky red handcuffs of death. And they're stuck. And that sucks for Florida State.
You would think so, but somebody needs to make sure to shout down into the hole that Florida State has dug themselves into and tell them to stop digging, because it wouldn't shock me necessarily to see them make that kind of a move and just say we're already at the bottom, but just keep going. The first thing you tell someone is hey, stop digging, right? You got to start moving out of the hole at some point, but you got to quit digging it. So I'd be interested to see if they actually do make that move, because I agree with you. It doesn't make any sense financially, but they might do it anyways.
What's the financial saying? If you owe the bank $1 million, the bank owns you. If you owe the bank $100 million, you own the bank. That's kind of where it feels like we are in Tallahassee right now.
Taking some fiscal policy to its absolute theoretical limits here in Tallahassee.
Yeah, some I don't know how close to Tallahassee Jerome Powell is, but yeah, there's some funny financial policies going on down there. But we can trash on bad head coaches all we want. Let's put a little air under the wings though. Which coach gets a redemption arc this season? And Trey, I guess we'll start with you again.
The one I want is Billy Napier taking JMU to the back to the playoffs, just to be, full on Sunbelt Billy, right? Yeah. Just winning the Sunbelt and getting JMU back to the playoffs. That would be absolutely hilarious. The more serious one, how about Dave Dorn at NC State? Because he has CJ Bailey back. You look at their schedule, off the top of my head, I think they avoid Miami on the ACC schedule. Not the most difficult ACC schedule. I know we've said that before with NC State, and they have not taken advantage with an experienced quarterback coming back. They lost Hollywood Smothers. That's a big blow to that offense, but experienced quarterback and easy schedule has definitely been a nice combination for lesser coaches, I think, than Dave Doran. So maybe he can find a way to get the Wolfpack back to relevance.
Yeah, I'll stick in the ACC. I'm going to go with James Franklin. I wanted to go Jedd Fisch out of Washington, but their schedule is gross again. I don't know that I necessarily am this big bandwagoner for Jedd Fisch, but I really do like what Washington has going on up there. I think it's a fun program when it's all clicking, and I want Washington to be an impact player in the Big Ten, but that schedule's gross. James Franklin, on the other hand, has got a bunch of talent, basically stole Penn State's recruiting class in Blacksburg. I think the country is eager to have Enter Sandman mean something again and get to see Virginia Tech games on TV. They've got a pretty soft schedule this year, so I'll say the Hokies have that redemption arc this year.
Yeah, I think my redemption is going to be Kyle Whittingham, and it's entirely because of the reason he left and kind of some of the unceremonious attitudes around his, out from Utah. From everything I've been able to see, it was definitely a not meeting of the minds and a, hey, you're washed up, grandpa, get out of here. We got a head coach in waiting. He's going to take the program where we need it. And I know that some people are going to, again, it's the age thing or whatever else, but I think this is his chance to say hey, that program wasn't you guys, that was me. And if he's able to take that over to Michigan with him, win a bunch of games, schedule's going to be tough for Michigan. But if he can win some games, make a couple statements, I think that's some massive egg on the Utah Utes' faces, especially if they aren't able to kind of ascend as a program and matter again post Whittingham. I think it's going to be a lot of egg on their faces. It's not so much a redemption arc from he had a really bad season last year. Maybe he's going to find his way. This is entirely about him, his ego, his reputation, his legacy. I think it's going to be a big year for him.
Random side note that I have to call out before we move on. I just pulled up the Texas Rangers spring training game against the Kansas City Royals. Both teams are wearing their royal blue jerseys. So
they've done that a couple of times this spring. I don't understand. It confuses me. I'm just am I looking for the pants? Is it white versus gray? Is that what I'm supposed to look for? I hate it.
Yeah, that's
bring
that's
back
hard
Ranger
on the eyes.
Red. That needs to happen 5 years ago.
It's a good point. Our national audience, our Utah fans, our Michigan fans that have tuned in for this segment are like, what?
But what are you talking about? Yeah.
Listen, it's March 23rd, baby. Opening day is this week.
It's March, and you're on a college football show. Just you get it.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, do you think we only watch college football? Come on, guys.
Listen, we got to be a little well-rounded here, right? The wives like baseball. We got to give the wives what they want. Garrett, fun question that I've gotten in our DMs. Which one of us is most likely to cook up a huge parlay at the sports book? I think unanimously on this show there is one answer.
There is a singular unanimous answer, and though I do believe I could give him a run for his money. I've been there at times, been able to cook some stuff up. Trey Reeves is absolutely in his bag when it comes to the parlay game and the finance. He finds some crazy off the wall stuff where I'm I didn't even know that league existed or played games, or I'm learning about a sport or something because he's cooking something up. But not Trey's in his bag when he gets in there. And the funny thing is he's normally right, and it's some BS that ends up ruining it for him.
It's true. That's a good point.
Yeah, it's me. I don't really have a rebuttal for that. I will say, you can't win if you don't play. Number one. That's what I always like to say. But you got to play responsibly. Just make sure you're playing responsibly. Don't fiddle around with money that's your rent or anything like that. But yeah, you can't win if you don't play.
And there is a number if you are doing that.
There is a number if you're doing that.
We would tell you to please call the number. Yeah, Trey, 100%. The Lord does not trust me in the hall of gambling. It's funny if you just ask me straight up, right? Pick a winner, pick against the spread. There was a time in college where in one of the pick'em leagues, Trey, it might have been your first year I was in your pick'em league, I hit it like 75, 78%. It was something absurd, just picking singular games, right? The moment I start to try and string them together, put a parlay together, none of them will hit, which is just obviously how that works.
No Texas 2 steps for Mitch. It's just not happening.
No. Another question that we got, who makes a jump into national relevance this year? I think a little bit different than the redemption arc. My answer is kind of the same. I think Virginia Tech is back in the conversation. I think Oklahoma State might be back in the conversation. Got a lot of angry comments from north of the Red River when I listed Oklahoma State as one of my top 10 offenses to watch this upcoming season. A lot of Oklahoma fans were not overly thrilled about that. Listen,
were they trying to say that their offense should be one to watch?
I was going to say.
I changed the channel when Oklahoma's on offense.
Yeah.
Oklahoma notoriously loves us in the comment section, so I'd get it.
Nevertheless, I think the Pokes will at least be fun this year. And, listen, going better than 2-10 with that offense and Drew Mestamaker running things might alone put them in national relevance. Garrett, when you look for a team that's into the national relevance, maybe they're back in the playoff for the first time in a little bit, like who jumps out to you?
I'm talking LSU in this one because they've taken a couple years off of national relevance, right? They had the whole, Daniel situation, the Heisman, and then it feels like they kind of just disappeared for a little bit. I think they're about to be playoff lock on a perennial basis. I just think the talent that they're going to be able to have, the portal, the upgraded coaching, like the way that, and again, we've had this conversation. I don't necessarily like the way that he, rocks his program, but man, Lane Kiffin can coach, man. He's a good coach and he knows how to coach the current game of college football. So I think this is a generous schedule this year as well, which can kind of on-ramp that a little bit. Ole Miss is away for whatever you think of Ole Miss, and I'm sure we'll talk about them pretty soon, but Ole Miss is an away game. It's going to be hostile. It's early. Like all the emotions still going to be there. So there's that. But Clemson's at home, A&M is at home, Bama is at home, Texas is at home. They get a really favorable schedule for their tougher games. And if you give him all of Death Valley and all of the anger and the excitement and the jubilee, whatever else is in there, yeah, it's going to be really hard for me to not pick LSU a whole bunch in this coming fall.
Yeah, Trey, what about you?
We've talked about him a couple times already this offseason, but I'm really watching the former Oregon coordinators and what they can do. National relevance might be a strong term. I don't really see either of them pushing for a playoff spot. Maybe Cal, Tosh Lupoi, Cal, if things break the right way in the ACC. But I think both of them have done a fantastic job. Tosh Lupoi at Cal, Will Stein at Kentucky, fantastic job loading up their portal classes. Tosh Lupoi is always going to have the advantage of teams coming all the way across the country, right, from the ACC for those home games. That's a big thing on the side. He has JKS back at quarterback, so that's a fun foundational piece. And then Will Stein, his SEC schedule is absolutely brutal, but their SEC opener is Alabama at home. And you want to talk about an opportunity to make a name for yourself.
Yeah.
With a fun quarterback, fun portal class, and a Alabama team that, one, has not been good on the road under Kalen DeBoer, and two, is probably going to be playing with a lot of pressure off the field this year. Could be fun. Just one to keep in the back of your mind. I think it's week 2. It's really early on in the season, but just keep that one in the back of your mind for Alabama traveling to Lexington.
Well, and with that, the penultimate question that we have on our run sheet, who is everybody too high on? Garrett, Alabama is your selection here.
Yeah, I really kind of tossed this one around a little bit. I was like, am I really going to say it? Am I really going to be that guy? Yeah, I am, because it's the beginning of the end, or it's like maybe the middle of the end for Alabama. At some point in time over the next decade and a half, I'm sure there's going to be a documentary that comes out about everything that happened at Alabama post Nick Saban, and about how the empire fell and all that. And I'm excited to see it, by the way. It's going to be a great documentary when it comes out. But I just think that it's only going to get worse from here. I think that the momentum is leaving the program. I think everything that they have built is starting to crumble. And again, this is not me making any statements about Kalen DeBoer necessarily as a head coach. I just think when you look at the portal class, all the talent that left, when you look at the quarterback leaving, you look at everyone that ended up getting out of town for Alabama. You combine that with, I don't think that good of a schedule. Schedule could be pretty tough in spots. It's just really hard for me to make the case for Alabama. And I know that it's going to be probably a popular take to just hate on Alabama over the next couple of years. And that's not what I'm doing. I'm not hating on Alabama. I don't hate Alabama. But it's really hard for me to think that this isn't the beginning of the end for that dynasty. And they're going to kind of return to just being like a good to sometimes great, and every now and then they make the playoff type of team in the SEC.
Yeah, their SEC schedule at Kentucky, at Mississippi State, they host Georgia, at Tennessee, host Texas A&M, at LSU off a bye week, at Vanderbilt, and then Auburn in the Iron Bowl. I mean,
tough games in there, and a lot of teams that are going to want to make a statement to show that they're still on top, or teams that are like, yeah, we made that. Like I'm thinking like Vanderbilt, Texas A&M, like a couple teams that played really well last season and want to prove that it's not just a one-time thing or a couple of years of glory or something like that. That they want to show that they're still that team. Versus a Bama team, like you just said it, like they're going to be playing with a lot of pressure, and there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be calling for DeBoer's head. And a lot of people that are going to want him out of town. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, what do they get out of Austin Mack? They thought they had Hollywood Smothers to lead that backfield, and he flips to Texas. Lot of question marks. Ryan Williams has changed his name and his number. There's just a lot unsettled around Tuscaloosa that we'll have to get our eyes on early on in the season. Trey, you and I are both co-signing another SEC team that we're maybe pumping the brakes on a little bit. I'll let you explain the case for taking this to Oxford.
Yeah, and I think it's a little bit different now that it seems like Trinidad Chambliss is going to be back. I think that we're not waiting another court decision or anything like that. But yeah, that's going to be a huge boost. But I just think that I've said this on a show a few weeks ago. I think that having a first-year head coach, Pete Golding, I know that he did more than anybody could have imagined by beating Georgia in the college football playoff, but this is going to be the first time that he has to make all the calls. They're not going to have Lane Kiffin calling plays on offense for a whole season. How many times has that just bailed them out over the last couple of years, just Lane having that well-oiled machine running? I just think it could be, not that Ole Miss is going to be a bad team, but I've seen them as high as like top 15. On some way too early top 25s. Like On3, I think had him at 15. ESPN, I think had him up in the top 15 as well. So I'm just not there. It's a tough schedule. It's a first-year head coach. We've seen so many times when a coordinator takes over, it's not always just smooth sailing right away, even if you have all of the right pieces theoretically in place to make it a smooth transition. I'm just a little tepid on that.
Yeah, I think I'm with you for all of those reasons. And guys, that brings us to our final question of the night. And I think it's one that's going to be asked by a lot of folks throughout talking season. We get spring games are ready to fire up. You're going to have all the social media clips, everybody trying to say, oh, this is why our team's going to be back. I think none more so than in the SEC, right? Where there is a championship drought. And I think it's getting harder and harder to even try and defend the fact that the Big Ten has not surpassed the SEC as far as championship contender. So final question of the night, true or false, the SEC reclaims the throne this year? Garrett, we'll start with you.
I'm going false, man. And this is where I can be kind of just clickbaited for social media or whatever. But yeah, SEC's overrated at this point. They're just not even a good conference anymore. The Big Ten's amazing. And, the SEC will never be any good ever again. This is the complete fall of the conference. And now finally people will wake up to how terrible the conference is. Again, this is clickbaity, right? This is not something I really think. But I do think it is fair to say that at this point, the SEC has lost its lead that it had over the other conferences. You could probably make the case, and I'd be inclined to make the case, that the Big Ten overall is probably a better football conference than the SEC at this point. And with as much turnover as there's been in the SEC, as much kind of top teams that have lost their quarterback, lost their head coach, maybe they're trying some new pieces on the offensive line. There's a lot of uncertainty, and I think a lot of reasons to maybe pump the brakes on a lot of the teams that were competitive last year. Right? There's reasons to maybe doubt the Aggies. There's maybe reasons to doubt the Longhorns. reasons to doubt the Sooners. LSU, we think Lane Kiffin's going to be really good. I think that they're locked for the playoff, but maybe not. Maybe it doesn't translate over. Tennessee, they've kind of been up and down. You're starting to ask yourself, who's the team outside of Athens that you can really trust to put up a competitive product right now? I think that's probably where your list stops, is in Athens, Georgia, versus, go find everybody else across the country who could compete. We were talking about how good Notre Dame's probably going to end up being, but I could also point you to, Indiana's probably not going anywhere. Ohio State's not going anywhere. I still think Oregon's going to be pretty good next year. So there's a lot of teams in the Big Ten that I would even say they still stay up there. And that's before we even talk about does Texas Tech take a step forward? Miami stay where they were at the top, and can they kind of repeat some of this? There's a lot of questions to ask about the rest of college football, but there's a lot of questions right now in the SEC about where that pecking order falls. And until I have a firm answer, I got to say no. I think that this one stays up north. I think that you could probably find maybe it's Notre Dame, maybe it's somewhere, but you have to think the championship probably falls somewhere in the Midwest again.
Yeah, I'm going to say the championship right now, there's probably 4 teams outside of the SEC that I would put money on in March before I would put up money on any SEC team. I think I'd put money on Notre Dame, Ohio State, Oregon, and Indiana to bring home the title all before I would really consider any SEC team. I think Texas and Georgia are probably going to be the top tier of that league if I had to guess right now. I haven't done all my preseason research, but they're the ones that I would consider. Georgia especially, I think, with all the talent that they're bringing back. But yeah, I think that there's just more depth of actual title contenders in the Big Ten right now.
Yeah, I'll agree with all of that. I think Georgia, if I had to pick one team today, I think Georgia is probably that team that's the closest. We'll see what happens in Tuscaloosa. We'll see what happens in Austin or College Station. Can a team like Florida jump up and be relevant immediately? A lot of questions, a lot of things that we get to kick around here in the preseason. But with that, fellas, I think that'll put a wrap on the Q&A episode. Great to have us all together doing this again. We've obviously been in the middle of our What's Next series that we're running over on YouTube, on our Substack as well, inviting beat writers, content creators from all around the country with various different programs to jump in, write articles, join the conversation. We have more of those interviews scheduled and coming up. So if this is your first time here, certainly invite you to subscribe, join us on all of our social platforms at 3TechPod. We'd love to have you be a part of the conversation. But for Trey Reeves, Garrett Turney, I'm Mitch Mason. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Until next time, so long, everybody.